Okay, welcome to the CPC meeting for September 14th, 2021. We will follow the agenda that was in the issue tagged in the repository, which was issue 797. First thing, does anybody have any public announcements they'd like to share?
Bit of a quiet week this week, but we do have the programming committee meeting on Thursday, and also a selection of folks from the standards working group are chatting with W3C for their AC office hours today. If there's anything interesting you wanted to know or discuss with our colleagues at the W3C, that's coming up later today at 4 o'clock Eastern. So that's it. I usually have a long list of things and I don't today, so I'm sorry.
I have one thing, quick thing. This Friday, I should get the time right. I will be honored to be a guest on the wonderful show In the Open that IBM hosts with Joe Seppi and Lucas. So that is, I should have this memorized.
It's at noon Eastern time.
9 a.m. Pacific.
Yes, yep. I'm excited. Thank you for doing it, Robin. Looking forward to it.
I'm excited too. All things OpenJS.
Sounds good.
I'll just add too. I don't know much of an announcement, but posted in Slack channels. Travis CI security issue. If you're using it still, I know they burned a lot of the community, but if you're still using it, rotate your keys and yeah, be safe.
Okay, any other announcements before we move on? Okay, the next thing is board meeting updates. I don't have any updates that come to mind. Sarah, do you have any?
Nope, just board meeting next Friday.
Sounds good. I do remember there was something that was in some of the notes, one of the meetings I didn't miss, that was going to go to the board for a vote. I don't think we've quite had that happen yet, so hopefully we can get that in for next week.
We do have project update. Nathan, you want to give a quick update?
Sure. Hello, everyone. There is a quick announcement. NativeScript 8.1 was just released yesterday. It was an exciting update for everyone involved on the team. And it's nice to expand into kind of official workspace development, which has been the JavaScript community for a long time, but particular things with the CLI had constrained it in certain ways. So 8.1 sort of removes those restrictions. On that line, Thursday, I'm giving a talk on NX with NativeScript, and it sort of touches on some of those aspects of workspace development. So an exciting update for NativeScript users for sure.
Congrats. It's pretty
Congrats.
cool.
Thank you.
Okay, any other announcements? Okay, if not, let's move on to the issues tagged for the agenda. The first one is recurring events reminders number 795. I know, Joe, you'd done some work on that, right?
Yeah, no update there. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I don't have an update. So
I think I'd seen you created a doc though somewhere, or maybe I'm remembering wrong, but
yeah, I started a document in the repository to just collect them and that we could check on every now and again until we have something more automated in place.
okay. I mean, I think that could be the perfectly good solution where we look at that each week in the repo versus not, if we don't have, can't think of what an automation helps. I'm just saying, I don't think we necessarily have to say automation is the end goal in this case, but so it's good to see some progress on that one in that front. The next one is 794, create dates and reminders.
Yeah,
I think that is
and maybe these,
that pull. That's that pull request, isn't it, Joe?
Right. Okay.
and so I think there's one question related to this, if I remember correctly, is should we capture the dates to remember in an issue or in a document in the repository? I'm open to either. I think that's one question Toby and I were going back and forth on.
I guess the question in my mind would be, what's going to be easier to find? Like, I can maybe remember that create dates and reminders as a doc I can find at the top level. An issue, I might have to search or remember the title, or I don't know. But
You can pin it. I mean, we shouldn't be spending a lot of time on this, frankly. You know, I think just folks should have a look at both solutions and figure out like what works for them, and then pick one. I don't think either Joe and I really care. So essentially, whoever is going to handle the meeting, Michael, maybe that's you. And so maybe you should just decide whatever feels easier for you to do.
I'm only here as a fill-in for Joe, so I think it's Joe as the chair, right?
Whoever handles like creating the doc.
Well, that's automatic, but yeah, so I guess the question is, we could just update the templates to have something sort of like we check in on the working session stuff, and point to the doc, or we have an issue that has an agenda label. Personally, I like the document at the top level of the repo, and we can edit it as we see fit and organize it as we see fit. But again, I agree with you, Toby. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, so whatever's fine.
Let's do that. I'm closing the issue.
Great.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one then. This is work in progress 789, start listing documents maintained by the CPC.
No update.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
Just really quickly, and maybe I don't know why I'm directing this at Toby, but can you create a quick issue to just say add the reminder for dates document to the meeting
Yes.
template, and I'll try to take care
Sure.
of that. Thank you.
Okay, so next one is clarify requirements around the COC violation.
I had
see
a
there's
quick
been some
question
discussion.
for this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think we had a bunch of agreements as what the next steps were. There was one small issue that came up as I was trying to start on working on the pull request for that. Was there is a requirement for using a mailing list to be able to report code of conduct violations, but there is no requirement for clarifying who was on the receiving end of that mailing list. And this felt like something that was awkward if you were about to report something that had happened to you, not being aware of like who you're reporting that to could feel really scary. And so I was wondering if people had thoughts about how we should move forward with that. To give a bit of context to folks who are not clear with what this issue is about adding a minimum set of requirements to make sure that there is across the different projects agreement as to the basics of how to handle a COC violation, or delegate it to the CPC if project doesn't want to handle it itself.
My 2 cents is it's reasonable to ask that. Is that, you know, if it's basically you need to have an email, it's reasonable to also say who that email is going to, so that you know who you're sending it to.
Are folks okay with this?
Yeah, I
right.
agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
As long as the requirement isn't, I think, to that we use absolutely real names, but that they are identifying, I don't know, GitHub usernames or anything to basically identify the person, rather than revealing private information that a person might not, who at the receiving end might not want to share.
Right, and I wouldn't make it like, sorry, I guess maybe I should have clarified. I wasn't thinking like it would identify individuals. It would be more like it goes to the CPC in the case, like to some group or some representative. I don't know,
Maybe
Toby, how that factors
some-
through. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it is best practice to, as well you can say it's going to @Emily on GitHub, which is, I think, a reasonable enough sort of identification for a person who wants to be known on the internet, but may not want to have their personal identity disclosed, or for those who are satisfied saying, oh, this email goes to Jory Burson, Toby Langle, and Nathan Walker, as the COC group, or it goes to the TSC, the list of people you can find here. Like I think that's what Emily's getting at. And I think that's perfectly reasonable and kind of a best practice here.
That's pretty much exactly it.
Multiple patterns that a project could choose. And there's certainly some projects that, and like Dojo is one, I think there's only 1 or 2 people and they're like, hey, it's Dylan and Nick. There you go. And that's fine as long as somebody knows who's getting it.
So just for clarity's sake, are requiring the recipients of that email to be known is what the agreement is about? People agree with that? Yes?
Yes.
To be known is good.
Yeah.
Plus one
Identity, yeah.
instead of just a generic report at project whatever. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, folks.
Okay, so the next issue is number 782, which is simplify a COC page.
That's the one that's waiting on board approval.
Right, okay. Let me just, does that tag probably is? Okay. Okay, so waiting on board. So yeah, hopefully we'll cover that off this week or next week. Sorry, when the board meeting takes place. Next one is reminders for long-term events. This is 758.
Is that a duplicate?
That's kind of what I'm wondering.
This is probably the issue that we have there to be reminded about long-term events. It feels like we can close this.
Yeah, so let's close as a duplicate.
Or rather, let's have the pull request close. Let's have 795 close it.
Okay, so we'll say this should be closed. This should be closed when 795 lands.
And what's holding up 795? I don't know if it's on the agenda or.
Let's
because it may be good enough to land, and then we just modify it as we go.
yeah, I mean, you sort of jinxed it earlier when you said like there's no updates, but yeah, I actually could probably land that. Okay, so
795 is an issue. Wait a sec, see 795, wait a sec, I'm looking at the wrong.
You mean when 794 lands?
Maybe 794 is the one.
oh, how,
That's what,
oh well, yeah. Apologies.
Right, yeah, 794. This one's got no reviews, but I'm happy to like add one. I think if we had one other CPC member and it's been open for how long? It doesn't change any of our governance or anything, so 14 days. So I think we could, if one other person jumps in, then we could just land it and close all these ones. And I see
Just take a look at it real quickly and take a look and see if there's anything that's obvious that we're missing. I just threw some stuff in there, but I can't remember if I'm missing anything.
I think we can easily update it like you said, though. So I think we could land that, close the other two, close the other one, and be good. Is that people happy to do that?
Wait,
Sounds good.
Yeah,
which one are we landing? I can.
794.
794.
794.
The only quick point that we had about 794, I'm sorry, but was we wanted process to be able to update this without going through the whole requirements. Or like a fast tracking, like, I mean, this, like, you know, we can't wait for like 2 weeks to add something to this. It's ridiculous.
I think today it's 2 days.
Yeah, and I think if somebody wanted to fast track it, I don't think there'd be an objection to that.
No, I'm sorry. What I meant is what we had discussed, Joe, is if this is a document in the CPC repository and you want to update it because we have like something that we have to, you know, like something to add during a meeting, right? Like we can't, we don't want to have to wait on the 2-week requirement to merge a pull request.
Right, but it's not a, it's basically pull requests do not change charter or governance CPC can be merged in the repository following conditions. So no objections, 2 approvals by CPC members, 72 hours. So it's not quite 2 weeks. I agree we could add in another section into that merging PRs, which is basically like for this file, there are no requirements or something if we wanted, or 1 approval, or I don't know what, right? But I don't know we need to wait to land it to do that, because we can separately have a PR that
We
would add
don't, you're
that
right.
into the. So I'd suggest we plan to have a PR which updates that to say for this doc, here's the new rules that we want, which can be whatever from nothing to something lighter.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I don't even think we need to update that merging stuff. We can just fast track it if we need to, right? I think there's a clause in there about fast tracking. I don't think it's a big deal.
Oh yeah, you're right. Fast tracks, right? Fast track label. Okay, so you just need 2 CPC members to say yes, and then there you go, right?
Sarah has her hand raised.
Yep, sorry, Sarah.
No worries. And I hope that I'm not, would it make sense to also add these things to the calendar?
Yeah, we can add it to the public calendar, especially if it's something like
Yeah.
election for, you know, such and such term, you know, that can be on the public calendar. I don't see any
Right.
reason. Why not?
I don't know if who has rights to that calendar? I don't want to just throw work on people's plates. If I can add it, let me know. If not, then sorry.
Staff, Joe, any, you know, lots of us. So once this lands, we can get them all added as recurring events. So
Awesome. Thanks.
And we don't need to bike shed this too much, but one thought that comes to the election, we may want to have like a month out a thing that says prep, you know, get the election process started or something like.
Makes sense. So I'll land 794 and close the other one, which is I think is where we were going. It's like let's actually do it and get it done. Okay. The next one, create proposals for the community fund, 756.
Yeah, I'll give you all a quick update. If you see at the very end of the document, we had a plan for the Node.js Lift Scholarship. That's going out at the end of the week. Lots of great things, doing a blog and a direct mail piece, some social and some press outreach. So that's exciting to get that launched. And I think the only other piece on that I need from you all is a volunteer or 2 to help me review the applications that come in. Michael's been a great set of eyes on this already. I don't know if you're interested in continuing, or any of you or folks from your projects, if they'd like to help review those that come in. So once it goes live, we give it 30 days to come in, and we'll do some marketing throughout that time. And then 30 days out, we'll review. And you can just contact me privately. I'll follow up with other folks who aren't on the call. But again, it'd be if there's other folks in your community who are interested, have them shoot me a note.
And Robin, what are we anticipating the time request here? So it's easier for people to kind of make a decision to raise their hand and volunteer. A couple hours of your time, probably.
It may be a couple of hours. We have some estimate based on the number of applications that come in from the Linux Foundation. That's broader. What we do is give it sort of a one run through, because sometimes applications that come in that are incomplete or like one words. So we sort of pare those back and create a shorter list. So probably similar to what you would find if you have experience working on the program committee, going through and reading some of those. But we created some little limits and have concise answers. Okay.
Okay, so I guess, and I don't know if there was some discussion in one of the last working sessions, right? So I don't know if it's worth
that was
bringing people up to date on that.
Yep, that we would give an update. Last week we had a working session on how to spend the remaining, because again, we're only using a portion of the funds that were set aside. So Jory, do you want to give a recap? And I think next steps might even be to carry on the conversation as well.
Yeah, so we had, unfortunately, not the greatest turnout that we were hoping for. So we kind of recapped the areas that we were imagining the community fund would be deployed to. Obviously, we have the LIFT scholarships, we have the travel program as well, which is quite active. So these are systems that we've already kind of developed a muscle to deliver on. And there's a couple though that we were excited about that we don't have the muscle for delivery on yet. I think the group spent the most time kind of thinking and contemplating what like a thank you program could look like. So this would be a function where project maintainers could send tokens of gratitude somehow to contributors or people who are supporting the project in a meaningful way. Say they, helped close a feature, or they helped do some training or support, or whatever the case may be. It's up to the project, frankly. So we talked about different ways that we could kind of deliver that, if we perhaps scoped a package that the foundation kind of puts together with like a t-shirt and a thank you card and some stickers or something like that, or whether there's something more customizable for the project maintainers, say sending people like an American Express gift card for $25, for example. So these are different things that we discussed, and the action item there was we're going to go take a look at the kind of the cost and the packaging that we know can be provided by a third party. So there's third party services that do these sorts of things, and that's probably the way to go here. That was maybe the biggest. The other areas where we thought maintainers might want to maybe spend some time is, or have something is, for example, just more ad hoc. And we don't really have a muscle for that yet either. We were kind of debating about like what kinds of things, what kind of parameters we might want to kind of put on an ad hoc request, so that we can either make sure that it kind of fits within the goals of the community fund, or frankly, it's not something that we might already be funding out of a different accounting account, because, for example, the foundation supports a wide variety of infrastructure costs for projects. So if a project says, can I have some money for infrastructure, that may very well fit very well in our current budget. So that kind of recaps the conversation on the community fund specifically. But again, I'll note that it wasn't inclusive of everybody who may care to think about this stuff. And so we're going to continue discussing.
I'd be curious, even just like, do we have the raise hands? I know I can't raise my hand, but like, how many people think that the thank you is an interesting idea and would like think their projects would say, hey, that's a good thing to be able to do, or it's more like a whatever?
If I may, I think that's a great idea. Tipping is something I think in open source people do enjoy doing, even if it's 99 cents, $1.99, something like that. YouTube live streams obviously take in contributions to comment and have a comment show up in the stream there. And people do that a lot for anyone that live streams for an hour on any topic that they are interested in. And it is a good way, I think, to probably get some open source projects, some support. And perhaps maybe there is some way to answer questions in that realm too, where someone really needs a direct answer, but perhaps, GitHub issue reporting or the forums on any particular project is not answering, but maybe someone, would love to contribute something to get a direct answer, perhaps. I don't know the best way to roll something out like that other than integrate it into some process that either is through OpenJS directly or individually through projects. There's probably a number of creative ways you could go about doing that, but I think that would be interesting. I know I would have contributed to open source projects to get some more involved discussions or inquiry. As well as just to say thank you, perhaps even if you don't have a need, but yeah, thank you, I think is be appreciated.
Having come in about 30 seconds ago, I already have opinions on this topic. Yeah, I get concerned about enabling individual contribution. I think it's masking sustainable funding for open source projects in a way that's unsustainable and putting the onus on individuals in a way that creates a somewhat toxic relationship that gets out of the people who are actually benefiting most from it, the people who are making millions off of open source work, not having to do anything and shoving that on individuals who are, getting employed by those people or those companies. So yeah, I am very critical of, whether it's something like GitHub sponsors or Open Collective and individual contributions. I would urge us to be cautious with that.
Yeah, in this
Maybe-
case, the suggestion was a thank you program, which was like
Right.
projects could say thank you to somebody who it's not like, hey, you did this, here's a return. It would be like exceptional cases where somebody said, hey, somebody really stepped up. Thank you for doing that. And it could be through something more than just like the words thank you.
Perhaps I threw that off, Tony, by saying kind of asking for a immediate need. Yeah, I think that's more the better line to go. What Michael's talking about, I think you more a tip gesture.
That makes sense. Yeah. Sorry, I heard that, and that is something I am very concerned about when it comes to open source funding. So I wanted to make sure I raised that if that's what we're talking about. So apologies for derailing.
Yeah, this really shouldn't be anything about funding. This is more just like, hey, the ability for a project to give a special thanks to some people who have done something. I personally find I quite like that, with the ability to do that within a company. And this is something that, the OpenJS could help enable for projects if we think that's going to be useful and beneficial.
If it is,
and one idea that we,
go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just say real quickly, one idea that we tossed around too was maybe having a list of organizations, Girls Who Code or what have you, and you could like have a small amount that they would donate in your name, kind of thing. It's another idea.
Yeah, having a number of different ways of things to choose from in terms of how your thanks were manifested in the end.
As far as embedding that or rolling out something like that, I wonder if OpenJS it had a widget that projects could put on their page, and maybe it's done on each project website. I think it would work better that way versus, someone knowing you have to go to OpenJS Foundation to say thank you, but it's kind of all embedded or integrated across the projects. If there's, a simple way to do that.
I think this is different. It's maintainer directed, right, to your contributors, as opposed to it's not like a people's choice thank you. It's a core maintainer to the contributor. Is that what you're sort of thinking on the widget? We can have
Probably, yeah, I was thinking probably both ways. I was just
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to think how you could roll out something like that where it would be there visible and not be, distracting. It be
Yeah, we do
something.
have an ability with our badge vendor to do something like that, I believe.
Yeah, we could do badging. We could also do like in terms of if there's a way you want to empower the community to suggest people who need to be appreciated or acknowledged, perhaps there's a like a form that then the TSC reviews and says, oh, we got these suggestions that we should honor Michael and Sarah and Jordan. Let's review it. Yeah, okay, we agree. OpenJS, can you send them the package or the donation or the whatever it is? Toby, you've had your hand up for a while. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get your voice heard.
Yeah, I just wanted to I think the thank you aspect is great. I think that's valuable. I think we have to be wary, as Tierney mentioned, about tipping for a number of reasons. Also, because it's a very North American thing. It has also a kind of a problematic history, and it feels really weird to Europeans, for example. Like it's a weird practice for us here, and so let's just be careful. Like, let's be careful about how this is talked about. And lastly, also, I think another thing that's important, which is why I really like this idea of being able to donate that money to other organizations. Instead, is it's also not just like ship junk to people all the time. Like the conferences do this. It's bad. Can we stop doing that, please?
I think that was part of the reason we said, let the recipient choose what's meaningful for them, right? And so if that's a donation to a charity, great. If that's some swag, okay. But if it's small amount of money, whatever, try and figure out a good set of those. Now I should let it go to, I think Emily's got his hand up.
Yeah, I think we're overthinking this. I mean, honestly, from my point of view, having once received swag for doing a contribution to an open source client thing that someone else, that a corporate entity did, I thought that was really cool. And I thought really the swag itself didn't matter. It was the sense of them wanting to thank me, and me, first of all, not expecting anything like that. And being able to offer something like that to contributors to projects, exceptional ones in particular, would be really cool. And yeah, it's not meant to be something that anyone does for the money. It's meant to be something that, we just do to someone that isn't expecting to get anything for what they've done, but we just want to thank them.
Right,
Yeah,
it's a surprise.
And what they get is really just shows that it's more than just saying thank you, right? It's totally the
yeah. So yeah.
Whatever it is doesn't matter. Same, exactly, yeah.
Having an option to get it, so we said we could send you a small bunch of swag, or you could say we could do a small contribution to one or two of these nice things that what do you want, and then go with that. Something like that would be cool.
Yeah, and for me, it's let's minimize overhead in getting it to them, right? If it's going to cost us $50 to ship something that's worth $10, let's find some other options too, kind of thing.
Right. So I think the last bucket of possibility for the community fund, I'm just going to keep reframing this as possibility. We haven't taken a full decision on any of this, and this is something I know some projects are doing. They're trying to think about ways that they can support local meetups, where a meetup may have a JavaScript meetup and they're talking about WebDriver. The WebDriver project might like to send that meetup some stickers or some pizza, or do something, and so we want to maybe think about operationalizing a process where they can say, hey, the meetup in Berlin is doing this, would like to send them a $50 or $100 for pizza or whatever. Can we do that through the community fund, as opposed to having to run our own system? And so I think that's an option too for our fund. And that, I think, summarizes the discussion on the community fund from last week.
Okay, any more questions, discussions before we move on to the next issue?
I just want to say that it's great that people are working on this, and thank you for coming up with these ideas.
Okay, the next issue is number 645, Dojo report link and code of conduct is broken. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to take a look at that.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was me. I was looking at code of conducts for the PR we talked about earlier, and I bumped into an issue where that form hadn't been working for like over a year, and it still isn't working. And so that probably needs to be fixed. And I don't know why I reported it here rather than the Dojo thing, because I was in a hurry essentially.
Do you mind maybe slacking Dylan and giving him a heads up and see if they can replace this for you?
I believe I've raised this in the past as well. I think Dylan got, or I pinged Dylan at one point. I'm not sure what the status of it was.
Is this like, there's no links or anything in this? Is this in a document within the OpenJS Foundation or somewhere else?
So this is the link that they use to have people notify of a report, and that is used in a couple of places, one of which is our list of where to report issues for each project. There's a broken link there, and the issue is that it's been broken for a while. We have notified Dylan, and we don't have an updated link. So
I'll
this is
ping Dylan. I know he
Okay.
was organizing the entire TypeScript conference last week, so he was just probably buried. So I'll give him a ping.
Yeah, actually, apologies. I didn't actually open this issue. I just tagged like a really old issue when I was on it because I noticed it was still broken. That's what happened, and that's why it makes more sense. Yes, pinging Dylan directly makes more sense.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, sounds good. So the next one is number 632, provide implementation guidance for DCO CLA.
So we don't have any update on this other than to just say it's been, just to recap again really quickly, the question on the table for us is whether the Linux Foundation should perhaps consider bringing the Probot DCO app under its purview for and I should not say under its purview, but should become code owners effectively for that application, so that we can help manage and maintain the feature that we would be adding with the PR that Brian submitted. We have been a bit busy with the Easy CLA hot swap over, as well as just it's kind of a busy time of year right now across all of the projects as we prepare for the 2022 budget and member renewal cycles. So I'm not sure that this is something that's getting the strategic visibility at the moment that's really needed in order to take this decision, but it's not forgotten. It is still very much here. Toby.
Candidate for moving this to our new reminders list and untagging it.
It's a reminders list to, because most of the things on that reminder, but correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but those were like things that were like recurring or?
Yeah, I think so. Although Toby did have an idea to double back and see if the at-large, interacting more with at-large projects was happening. So I don't mind keeping this on the list. I feel like the only question is just like whether we'll support the features that we're adding, and I feel like that's not too big of an ask. And since Gregor is already doing a lot there, that we should, since we're asking for those features, we should say yes. So I don't know.
I mean,
Any
I
other
think
comments, discussion? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I'd personally maybe prefer to keep the issue open and maybe tag it with like a backlog or something so that we know that it's not this this urgent thing, but I think that makes more sense than putting it elsewhere. My 2 cents.
Are we
Yeah,
in a
I
state
agree
where
with this.
are we in a state where we're going to be able to commit to that, or are we not?
Well, just maybe also for the record that it sounds like what we've asked or what we are asking is not for this to become the remit of OpenJS Foundation, but for this to become the remit of LFIT, which makes it not really our decision, but it does impact us because it's something that we want implemented because it will benefit our foundation. So, you know, that's maybe an important distinction because the community here has decided it's not really something that we can take on, but it's something that the community felt the LF should consider taking on.
Yeah, I think it came up. Sorry, go ahead, Terry.
Go ahead, Michael.
I think it came up because it was mentioned that many of the Linux Foundation projects depend on this DCO bot and this pattern. And so that seemed like a natural question. It's like, okay, if it's important, and this is obviously an important issue across the foundation, could we get some support on it? So, but I think Jory's point is like, we need to wait to a decision from the Linux Foundation to say yes or no. We can't make it ourselves. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there some kind of like, timeline of expectation of hearing back from them?
I mean, I would probably suppose that we would have maybe more time and ability to move this forward by like mid-October, just
Okay.
because of all the things that are going on. Robin's nodding, so that seems.
Yeah, I know that team has some milestones that they're hitting for mid-October. Actually, from a timing perspective, I just came off an LF call, so that sounds reasonable. And I know Brian has invested a lot of time in coding and thought around this, so we do want to move it forward. So.
I'm glad to hear that. And would it be possible, like, just to note that in the issue that like that's a potential, like, not a commitment, but like, the estimated time that we've kind of shared in the CPC, just so we can kind of keep note, because I think we're it's good to document that stuff as it comes up.
Yep.
Cool, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, it may also be worth just sort of like restating now that your projects can use the DCO bot as is. You could use EasyCLA. So there are tools, just they're not as idealized, and feature complete maybe as we would like them to be. And so the issue with implementation, the provide implementation guidance for DCO CLA is sort of morphed into something that's a lot more specific, which is, hey, we want XYZ feature added to this bot. How can we make that happen? Because we think that will make DCO a more attractive choice for projects. So it's sort of interesting because every time we hit this issue, we have to do some restating of the context and all of that. It's a lot more detailed. Maybe it's worth kind of revising.
It's fairly closely tied though, because the DCO recommendation, and there was discussion that basically was the recommendation to use the DCO as is. There were several projects that expressed concerns. So the recommended guidance was going to be to do it in the way that the PR allows you to do it. But of course, you can't make that recommendation until you've got the tool that lets you do it that way, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's just a little bit of a catch-22, I think. So that's all I have on that one, unless anybody has any questions about EasyCLA, in which case.
Okay, so it seems like we've covered that one, and that actually takes us to the end of the agenda. So I don't know if there's anything else people think we should talk about before we close out today.
One thing I wanted to just bring up is, we've had working sessions on our off weeks from our regular sessions. We're noticing that we don't get as much attendance, at least we didn't as much as we wanted in August. That's probably due to a lot of last minute travel and people being out of office and all of that sort of thing. But we're going to, start taking some different sort of tacks to help make sure you're all aware of like the topics that we're covering in the working session, so that if it's something that interests you and you do want to participate and weigh in, and that you at least know what it is that we're talking about, so that you can put it on your calendar for real and make time to come. And so to that end, last week, as we said, we reported on we talked about the community fund. The next meeting for working meeting is set for September 21st. We've currently penciled that as a COC working meeting, but we also have a couple of other topics which may be more pressing. My recommendation might be to do the EasyCLA demo and discussion for project maintainers on the 21st, because that is suddenly something that we have had to turn on for everybody. So everybody who has opted into that as an option. So that is September. So I guess maybe the question to the group is, what would we like to cover for the September 21st working meeting? And once that has been decided, I'll make sure that it's updated in the public calendar so that you know what we're covering.
I just had a closing thought on the OpenJS world. Is there a banner or a common banner that all projects could share to put up? Because I know with the travel being as much in advance, we'd love to put the word out about that. Are there limitations to the venue? Are you trying to keep the attendance below? Is it okay that should all projects put a banner up, and we could help create such a banner that's consistent? I thought that'd be nice.
That's great. We had banners created for 2021 and we'll have them for 2022 shortly.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and we'll have more information to share, but we're following the Linux Foundation where vaccines are mandated, masks are mandated as well. So, and we're looking at co-locating with some other entities next year as well, because we have a great space at the Hyatt. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I sort of jumped the gun there.
No, that's okay. It's all coming together. And as Jory mentioned, we have our program committee meetings. So if you or anyone else is interested, we'd love to have you on board.
Sure.
How we structure it, to who will speak.
And how you would like to see, your project engage with it. We're providing community spaces. In the past, we've done like project office hour desks where projects can sort of arrange to have people there to just talk to people in the exhibition hall about, things that are going on, or do a lightning talk about, the latest news from the project. We want this to be the projects' event, so whatever kind of thing you might think of, I'm sure there's a way to do it. So sending a rep from your project to the programming committee would be super rad, so we can make sure we get that. Yeah.
And you mentioned there's a separate meeting on that.
We meet on Thursdays. It's on the public calendar. It's every other week. I believe I can't remember if it's 8 or 9 my time Pacific. But yeah, and also, we have the event, which are 2 days, and then the 2 days following are collab summits for projects. So again, if you're a project and you want to have that time on day 3 and 4, let us know and we can save space for you as well.
I'll put it on the calendar. Sorry to take up on this meeting.
No worries.
I see it on the public calendar now.
Yeah. And kind of once we get everything squared away, we'll do a proper sort of briefing on a CPC call.
Awesome.
Cool.
And just to double back on your question, Jory, I think EasyCLA makes sense for next time, but I'm open.
Any issues swapping EasyCLA and COC working group meeting our working session. We've got stuff happening for both, but I just think the easy CLA issue is more pressing because there be bugs and we want to solve them with our can of
Objection here.
Raid. Cool, thank you. I'll swap those. Thank you.
Okay, any other issues people want to bring up before we close out? If not, thanks to everybody for taking the time to attend and those who are watching, and we'll see you in GitHub and next time.
Take care, everybody.
Great to see you
Thanks.
all.
Right,
Thanks.
folks?
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Michael.